Okay, so this is the transformation of functions. And transformation, does anybody remember from last year what transformation means?
Yeah, you change the graph.
Good. Transform means change. That's right. There were several different ones. There were the kinds where you could turn it. What does a turning do?
It flips, or no, it rotates.
Rotates. Good. What does the flip do? Reflection. What does the slide do? Moves. It's called a translation. Yep. That's really what we're going to be dealing with today's translations, sometimes reflections. But what you're going to be doing is looking at a graph and knowing what the parent function is and then making changes according to what you see. So reviewing up here, a linear equation is one that has an exponent of 1 and no absolute value bars. The quadratic is going to be one that has the squared on it right here. Absolute value has an exponent of 1 as well. It's linear, except it makes it into a v. A v is made up of two straight lines. They just go up. They both go upwards. And then the exponential has to have an x in the exponent there. Okay, now what do you notice about these equations before we go on? What's different about them? What do they have? We have x's, y equals. The y equals means we're telling what the y value would be. What are those other little things in there? Weird letters. There's an h and there's a k in each one. That's the transformation part. An h is linked to the x value and it moves with the x. So if I say that, which direction would it be moving? If it's moving with the x, which way would it be going? Left to right. X-axis, the x value is all your left to right axis. If the k is linked to the y value, which direction would the k make it move? Up and down. Okay, and I don't know where the h or the k came from. Just like mx plus b, these are just letters that stand for something. So the h stands for the value for the x, and the k stands for the value at the y. Now that's for the new transformation. So let's write this in. H is linked with the x. It moves the graph left or right. The letter H is going to tell you we're going to start at the parent graph, the 0, and then we're going to move it left or right. The y value, though, the k is linked with the y value, and it's going to make your graph move up or down, depending on if you find it to be positive or negative. Now, here's a trick that I haven't found it to be wrong yet, except for this one little thing here, which I can fix. Inside the parentheses or brackets or connecting group, like the absolute value bars, your sign changes. Highlight that, circle that, underline that or something. That's when the sign changes. If you're inside parentheses or brackets of any kind, you go with the opposite sign. So with my exponential here, I'm going to end up putting brackets there in a second. If it's outside the brackets, the sign stays the same. Okay, that's a trick that will save you a lot of time if you can remember that. So up here, looking at this linear one, h is not really just h, it's the opposite of h, but k would stay the same sign. So go over here really quickly and just in this exponent, put parentheses there, because that really is a group. That really is grouped together. It's one exponent right there. All right, so let me show you what I mean by that in these first few examples. Write the equation. All right, so the first thing they did was they told us what h and what k were. So we're going to write a quadratic equation. I'm going to do this one in detail. Later on, we'll start doing it where we could do it faster in our head. So we need to write the quadratic equation. Look up here at the top, find quadratic, and let's copy it down. It's y equals a times parentheses x minus h parentheses squared plus k. All I did was find the quadratic and write it down. Now what we do is fill in what we know. In our example for math 2, the number in front is always going to be 1. When you get into math 3, they'll start making it taller or wider. But for right now, we're just going to keep it at a constant of 1. So y equals 1 times, parentheses, x minus, now look over here. What's h? Good. So see how it goes minus -2? That's really going to go with the opposite sign. In a second, we'll turn that into x plus 2. And then that's what I mean by changing signs. And then what's k over here? So we say plus 3. And now for our final answer, y equals, we don't need to put a 1 there. But that minus 2 turns into what? Positive 2 squared and then plus 3. So see how the h was -2. When you wrote it, it really turns into positive 2. Why? Because it's inside the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, the sign will always change. But this k of positive 3 stayed as a positive 3 because it's not in any parentheses. Okay, 99% of the time that works. I haven't found a time yet where it doesn't work. If I find one, I'll tell you. But that has always worked for me. Let's try letter C. You have to start off by finding which equation that we're going to plug it in. It kind of follows the same format every time except for the exponential. The only thing that changes is the exponent or the bars. So we're going to do the linear one right here. Y equals A. Well, that's just going to be 1. So for now, we can just leave that off. In higher math, they'll have you deal with that one. So it's going to be x minus what? Minus what? 0. Good. Because did you cross off B like I had that cross off? X minus 0 squared. That's the h. And then plug it in here. Plus k. What should I put for k? 4. H was 0. K was 4. It's a linear. Thank you. That was a lot of you. I'm going to just have to give extra credit to like the whole bunch. Yes, you're right. Linear would not have this squared. Okay, so now that's not how we would write it. If you can simplify it, simplify it. So y equals x minus 0 is just x, and then plus 4. So you're going to start to see how this relates to the mx plus b form. What would be the slope of this equation? 1 over 1. And what would be the y-intercept of this equation? 4. So they all kind of work together. All right, now let's try letter D, where they didn't give us h and k. But hk is the vertex of wherever the point is changing, either on a parabola or absolute value. It's that point right there. So what are the values right there if you were graphing that dot? Good, -2, 4. So that becomes your hk. I didn't tell you which equation to find, but look at that picture. Which equation should we be looking for? Absolute value. So we're going to do y equals A, parentheses, x minus h, absolute value, plus k. Sorry, not parentheses, but absolute value. Okay, so y equals A is 1. We're not going to change that. And you can actually, it's 1, but see how it's going downhill? It's going down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. We're going to write that as -1. They'll throw negatives on you, but they're not going to stretch it out and make it like with numbers there. -1 times the absolute value of x what? Change the sign on the h. Instead of writing x minus 2, what should I write? X plus 2, because that one's inside the brackets. It's not always going to be on the h. When you get into higher level, the k's can change value too, but it's whatever's included inside parentheses or brackets. And then what should I put for the k? Plus 4, and that's the equation. So today we're just going to be writing equations. Okay, so 3 more examples like that, and then I want you guys to have time to start in on your homework. If the internet will start working, or else just using your phones, or maybe I'll just put pictures up on the screen for you guys and you could do. Nah, that wouldn't work because then you couldn't enter your answers. All right, so look at example 2 down here. If we answer each question one at a time, we will eventually come up with the equation. All right, so now there's something called a parent function. A parent function is what it would be at its most basic form. Absolute value in its most basic form would look like this dotted line right here. And the parent function is always at 0, 0. Okay, but the new function can move. So this is the parent function right here. This is our new graph that we're making right there, the one that's in solid colors. Okay. So the question is, what direction is the graph, the solid line, the new one, moved from the parent function? So we have to count to go from here to here. Where do we go? How much right did we go? 2. So 2 to the right, 2 to the right. And then what did we do? 3 up. Up 3. It doesn't matter which word you put first. Well, those are both positive. To the right is positive and up is positive. Now look at this and decide what family of functions is it. Your choices are up top of your page. Absolute value. Good. Write that down. They want you to write that down because they want you to decide which formula you're going to fill it into, which equation you're going to plug in the values. Okay, from the idea up top or from looking yourself, what is H and what is K? H is 2. Good. Sorry. 2 for H, and what is it for K? 3. Yep. So that's H and that's K. Now if you notice, 2 to the right and 3 up completely matches with the point 2, 3. They all go together because it all starts at the origin. Okay, and now we just do what we did before. Since you said it was absolute value, you have to choose the absolute value equation. Y equals A times brackets X minus H brackets and then plus K. Now K can be negative, but only if the original K that you found was negative. You don't change the sign. It's not always going to be plus K, but you don't change the sign. If K is negative to begin with, then K will be negative in your equation. All right, so in our case, this is upright, which makes it a positive one. So we don't need to write that in. But I'm going to write X what? Do the H for me. Minus 2, good. H is positive, so we're going to change the sign to make it negative 2. Plus, what do I put for K? And that's your equation. Okay, and that's pretty much all your homework will be. Got a few more examples to do, and then I'm going to let you work on your own. So number 3, what direction is the graph moved from the parent function? The parent function is the dotted one at 0, 0. Where does this one go? From the parent down to here, where do we move? To left. Whoops, left 2, down 4. As you can notice, that's also the vertex of this parabola, -2, -4. Everything is connected together. All right, I just used the word parabola, but also looking at that shape, which family are we with? Quadratic family, good. That means we're going to use the formula or the equation that has the squared in it. Okay, so in this case, what's H? -2, and K is? -4. Same as the vertex of the new graph. All right, we're going to start filling this in. The only other thing you have to look for is if your graph is ever going upside down, that means your very first is negative. So I'm going to write it out first. Some of you might be to the point where you don't need to do that, but I'm going to write it out. That one has to have the squared and then plus k. All right, y equals a is positive 1 because it's going upwards. What goes inside parentheses? So it would become x plus 2, and then it's squared. Now don't automatically make a positive k. You keep the sign of the k. So what is k supposed to be? And that's what you write, -4. Okay, I didn't change the sign. I just kept what k is already. K is already -4. All right, and then the last one. Anyone still writing on this one? And now the last one's different because it's a line, and there's lots of different directions you can go. I'm going to tell you to go, you can either consider going to the left, going to the right, or going down. I'm going to tell you to stick with the y-axis because it connects to the slope-intercept form. So in this case, here's the original at 0, 0. Go down to here. How much did it go? Down 4 and nothing else, right? We're not going to look over here because you can't count 2 transformations, only 1. So whenever it's a line, stick with either up or down. It'll just make it easier for you. Okay, what type of function? Linear. At this point right here, what's h and what's k? 0, left or right, good. And what did you say for the k? -4, good. It was down 4. All right, is this an uphill or downhill line? Uphill, so a is positive, so we don't have to change anything there. So we're going to go with x what? Do the h there. X what? -0. And then -4. X minus h is 0, and 0 doesn't have a positive or negative, so that one doesn't matter. And then the k is -4. You keep that -4, you just don't change it. So in reality, this looks like x minus 0 is just x, and then -4. And that makes sense, because the y-intercept is -4, and the slope is up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. So it all amounts to the same thing. We just want at this point for you to see the connections between all the different types of functions. Now there's nothing to do on the bottom except for you to just notice that if the number in front, if a changed, these are the ways it could change it. If there's a 1 in front, it would just be a straightforward absolute value. But if there's a number in front that's bigger than 1, your v gets taller and skinnier. If you have a fraction in front of the absolute value as your a, your v gets shorter and fatter.